Hi, this is Dave Harley from Ripvine Innovation. We're doing a foundation for a 10 by 12. What I'm going to show you works great for 6 by 8, 8 by 12, 10 by 12, all the smaller greenhouses. You could use it for a 2 by 6. I'd even go lighter gauge than that. 4 by 4s work. I'm going to flip this camera around. Just level your surface. Gravel helps you do that. These timbers are 6 by 6s. They're brown treated from Lowe's. And you're going to square it and make sure it's the right measurements for what you need. Don't just go by 10 by 6. Actually pull the parts out of the kit and measure the length of the foundation bracket. Okay, whether you choose to use it or not, get the true exact measurement. Okay, with your kit. Then use some nice galvanized or stainless steel hardware in the corners to help keep it secure. You'll notice I'm using 12-inch spikes. The wood has more than enough weight to hold it down, but the spikes help keep it all steady and in place so it doesn't shift relative to each other as you're building the greenhouse. Remember that when you're checking for square, that it's two diagonals have to be the same length if it's actually square. Don't just trust your carpenter square. Measure the diagonals and then make sure it's all level. Again, I like to use 12-inch spikes just to secure where the wood is on the ground. It's not necessarily about securing the wood to the ground if it's these nice heavy timbers. So often I'm asked how I do the simple foundation for this, and you can see sometimes I use cement, but I decided on wood because everything was still frozen. And then I rebarred it in. Now to get it level I have some space there, but I'm going to backfill that with this gravel and then pack it as I go. The beauty about semi-loose gravel is that I can dig about it with a shovel and shimmy things down as the ice continues to melt, keeping the greenhouse flat, and everything's good. And I can pack it in, and then I'll put some other pieces of rebar in, 2 pieces on each side that go at an angle so that it would be impossible for it to lift simultaneously. And that's more than sturdy enough no matter what the wind. Okay. Now we're going to talk about building the sides. Here's a sidewall. Okay. When I build it, I build portions. So I build the sides, the back, and the front. Okay. That's how I do it in that order. It doesn't really matter. But I don't try to put them together as I go. I just build each of the parts separately as if it were a separate unit, and don't worry about the other portions. Okay, let's talk about these guys. Your instructions say it, but people keep missing it. You're going to need 3 bolts in it. It's the same for a SP812, a D812, and a D1012. They all have the same kind of construction, same geometry, just different thicknesses. In each of these, you're going to need 3 bolts. Okay, so just put them in right now, 3 bolts. Here's what the 3rd bolt is for. You need it to attach this wall roof brace. This eventually flips 180 degrees from where I have it and comes up and attaches to the equivalent part on the roof, tying the wall and the roof together all along the length of the side. Okay, as well as the rain gutter. So this is definitely a part that's about strength, and it helps your snow load and all kinds of things. If you forget to put the 3rd bolt in to this vertical piece, then you end up getting the wall together and having to take it apart to put it in later. That just slows your way down. So remember, 3 bolts in every vertical piece along the side. That applies to SP 8s of any length, D8s of any length, D10s of any length. It's all the same kind of geometry. Here I'm building a D1012. It's a 6mm thick model. When you're doing these corners on the end pieces, do them first and then do the top. Don't try to do the top and work this way. It just doesn't work very well. If you have some longer bolts, make sure they go in these 2 positions right there. Okay. The ones on top don't matter because they don't have the extra pieces of metal. That bolt right there and that one right there, you can kind of tighten them up later. Let them slide for now. And make sure everything's square along the bottom as you build it. If you'll do all of those things, it goes pretty easily. You have to make sure that you end up with this hole there, close to the edge, it supports the door rail. And then the other one, eventually, you can see it's not quite there yet, has to line up with that corner bracket. Once you're this far and the corners are done, it's time to do the top, but you notice I've left that open. I haven't put that cross piece in there. It's so that I can squeak in these two top panels for there. And then I'll put that final bracket on. Once again, as you put your top peak panels in and tighten up the peak bracket, everything, make sure everything's square that's supposed to be square. Use a carpenter square, make sure it's accurate. Double check that. Check these side braces here coming toward the door frame on both sides. Make sure you get everything tightened back up. But once again, in order. Do the bottom rail first. Get all the vertical pieces attached to it, square them up, put the bolts in. Put the angled brackets on, but don't tighten this up completely. Put this rail on, but don't tighten it up completely. Same on both sides. Remember, you need 3 bolts, 4 bolts, 4 bolts. Okay. This top rail along the part that meets the gable, you need 5 bolts in it. The 6th bolt is a long one that comes from the outside through the door rail. Okay, so we're almost done, but not quite. Put the door rail on. The long bolt will go into that track, and it has to come up into that hole. Then put a nut on it. Do the exact same thing on the other side. Don't tighten them up. And then I used this rubber mallet to tap it. You can see a center plate underneath there. The center plate needs to line up with that center peak rail. Otherwise your doors won't center in the center.